Very good morning. We are back again with another presentation, but this time it is about writing course outcomes. We are in the process of writing course outcomes and trying to evaluate their attainment levels, and before that I thought we all need to share some information on writing course outcomes, and thus here we are. Before we begin, let us try to see why we are doing. We need to be very careful if we don't know where we are going, because we might not get where we want to go. Okay, we don't know what our course outcomes very clearly yet, and it would be very apt if we all sit together and discuss about them and then set about writing this. This is one little effort at putting things together and trying to kind of realize synergy. Okay, with this I'll put a disclaimer here, because this is not the end of it. I'm not in no way I'm an expert on this outcome based education or writing course outcomes. So you need to do a little bit of study. We all need to do a lot of study on the internet. There is a whole lot of material available on the internet, and we all need to read that, maybe spend at least 1 hour each day for next 1 or 2 days, and then set about writing the outcomes. Okay, so the idea is to set the mood and get the ball rolling, and not to give complete picture. We need to improve on what is presented here through group work. With that said, the expected outcomes of this presentation will be that after watching this video and undertaking about an hour of reading related material, we'll be able to illustrate the use of course outcomes, identify if the outcomes written are in good shape, write course outcomes for the courses that we teach. With this, we will try to see what is the outline of the presentation. We will define a few terms, then we will see why course outcomes are needed and what are they about, a little bit about Bloom's taxonomy, not a lot, but just one or maybe a couple of slides, and then we'll see examples of bad course outcomes, that is what not to do, and then good course outcomes, give an example of what is a good practice, then format of outcomes, and slightly we'll see what next. What do we do after doing all this? Okay, we'll begin with it here. These are some of the terms that we use commonly. PEO, Program Educational Objective. PO is Program Outcome. CO is Course Objective. CLO is Course Learning Outcome. Very many times they omit this word learning and call it course outcome. If you call it course outcome, you have CO, course objective here, CO, course outcome here. It will be confusing what we are meaning. That's the reason why I injected a term learning here. Otherwise, CLO, course learning outcome, and CO, course outcome, we should be able to use them synonymously. CO for course outcome, CO for course objective. And then another abbreviation often used in the context of this outcome based education is Bloom's taxonomy. And when we say a course, an organized set of topics for study. Theory of machines is a course. Electronic devices and circuits is a course. Data structures is a course. A program is a sequence of courses. For example, BTech Mechanical Engineering, that involves a sequence of courses organized in a particular way. So when we say a program, we mean in the context of NBA, BTech Mechanical Engineering, or BTech Electronics and Communication Engineering, or MTech Information Technology, or MTech Thermal Engineering. Okay, I just thought we need to set these definitions clear before we go any further into this. With this, we'll see the next item on discussion, that is, why do we need course outcomes? Okay, this is very important because we need to know why we are doing or why we are learning about something before we actually go and learn it. This kind of sets a purpose. Let us see why we need to do that. These course learning outcomes are needed because they give an accurate picture of the learning experience to all the stakeholders. By stakeholders we mean students, parents, teachers, then administration people, then management, then industry, then society at large. Okay, these learning outcomes give an accurate picture of learning experience, what students are going through, what they are learning. The second advantage is transparency of degrees. Let us say a student undertakes a B.Tech degree in one institute and want to go to M.Tech degree in another institute, and he wants to decide where he fits in if he compares the learning outcomes and program outcomes. Those, if they match, then the student is good to go. Similarly, this kind of gives transparency to students. The moment a student looks at the course outcomes of, let us say, theory of machines, he will immediately understand that, oh, I learned so and so topics and I can apply them here, and this is a good course that I need to take because it meets my objective. Or he might say, oh, this is not what I want, and so on and so forth. Another important aspect is specified depth of coverage. The same subject, engineering mechanics, can be covered in different depths. Even though the topics listed in the syllabus, they are almost the same. The depth of coverage may vary from one instructor to another instructor. If we have to normalize that, we need to clearly define what is the learning experience that is received by a student. So this depth of coverage will be clearly specified if we write the learning outcomes or just course outcomes very clearly. If this is clear, that is depth of coverage is clear, question paper setting becomes easier. Okay, the question papers do not become either bouncers or end up as dumb questions. Better question papers. When question papers are better, uniform evaluation process. The evaluator clearly knows what is expected and he can kind of grade and evaluate the students. And last but not the least, it allows us kind of setting up a student-centric learning environment and not a teacher-centric. We won't say what a teacher needs to do. Teacher may do whatever he chooses to do, but ultimately the student should be able to do certain things. That kind of an environment is set if we clearly define what are course outcomes or course learning outcomes. Okay, with that we'll come here and see what do course outcomes specify, what is involved there, how do we write them. Such kind of things we will try to see in subsequent slides. Okay, learning outcomes are measurable statements that articulate what students should know, be able to do, or value as a result of taking a course. Okay, if you see very minutely, the course outcomes should be observable statements. That is, if you make a statement, you should be able to observe it in the behavior of the student. Okay, when the student undertakes the course and approaches a problem, we should be able to see that very clearly. Measurable, that is, ultimately you will be trying to assess how far these outcomes are attained. Because if two students take a class, both of them understand the course in different ways. Each student has a perspective and way of learning. If two students take the course, how would you rate which student learned which component of the course well? Okay, if you need to do that, you need to have clearly specified learning outcomes. And basically all these, the learning outcomes, they focus solely on capability of students. It is not how well we are teaching, It is not what facilities we are teaching. It is not what method we are using to teach. Okay, all those are needed to impart the learning outcomes into the students. But essentially we are interested in knowledge, skill and attitude. Sometimes it is written in the reverse order and say ask. Okay, capability in terms of ASK. To impart knowledge, we do teaching. To impart skill, we do training. To impart attitude, we do development. Okay, that is why faculty development program. They are not called faculty knowledge program or faculty skill program. They kind of develop attitude. We need to have these things very clearly specified in terms of learning outcomes when we write a course, when we develop a course and we try to set the syllabus and set the tone and depth of the course by using learning outcomes. Okay, so we'll kind of try to see the next topic. Okay, when we are writing learning outcomes, that is course outcomes, we should bear in mind that these course outcomes should somehow or the other specify the kind of knowledge and skills involved, the level of understanding students achieve after undergoing the course, and how this learning, how this understanding is demonstrated by these questions. One common way of approaching this task of writing learning outcomes is kind of to use Bloom's taxonomy. Again, I do not claim any expertise or knowledge on Bloom's taxonomy, but we will broach little by little what is this Bloom's taxonomy, and we begin that by looking at this pyramid kind of thing. We will say that remembering is very low level learning domain. Okay, and then comes understanding, and then a higher level than understanding is applying, then analyzing, then evaluating, then creating. So when we try to specify the contents of a course and then specify what kind of understanding is expected, we will try to say at what stage the student should be applying his learning values to real life problems, whether he is demonstrating memory or whether he demonstrates understanding, or he is applying the same principle in a different situation, or if a complex problem with several variables is posed to him, will he be able to analyze the situation and come up with a solution, or can he evaluate more than one solution and kind of come up with the optimum solution, or can he create new knowledge on his own, new patterns. So kind of remembering is kind of pattern recognition, then pattern understanding, and so on and so forth. If you go up the pyramid of learning domain, creating new patterns, creating new knowledge. So when we try to specify learning outcomes, we kind of specify whether the understanding is at a remembering level or analyzing level or at creating level. If we want to describe at which level the student is learning, we need to use certain action verbs. Okay, these action verbs either written in course learning outcomes or when we ask a question, that is when we write a question paper. Certain kinds of verbs indicate certain kinds of understanding. So if you want to test remembering, you will write certain action verbs. If you want to say something about analyzing and write an outcome, you use certain kinds of words. Okay. Before we go to the next slide, it's a very good idea to make this kind of chart. I can email you the picture, or you can very easily search on the internet. Make this chart and display prominently in the department so that both teachers and students alike get a chance to look at it. Okay. We saw that remembering, when we talk of remembering, you use certain words: define, describe, draw, find, identify, recite, tell, write, and so on and so forth. Similarly, for understanding, you use certain kinds of words. So when you try to write a question on remembering, maybe you can use these action verbs. When we want to put a question about applying knowledge, these are some of the action verbs. These kind of action verbs will carry into our learning outcomes also. If we want to specify an outcome at remembering level, these are the kinds of the words you use. Okay. Similarly, for other three learning domains: analyzing, evaluating, creating. Okay, these are the kinds of the verbs that you use. It will be a good practice if you go onto the internet and see an extensive list of such words and put it at some place in the department. Maybe you can make a big chart and put it on the department so that both teachers and students see, and each time when they see, they question themselves: at what level is my understanding? Is it merely memory, or is it kind of evaluating or analyzing or creating? Very often this Bloom's taxonomy, they specify in terms of this list. At each level, these are the verbs. It will be a good idea if you make an elaborate chart, okay, for each area of learning domain: knowledge, understand, apply, analyze, evaluate, and create. If you display prominently in the department, it will be very useful. Okay, we can ask ourselves at what level the students are learning, and obviously at what level are we learning. Okay, and then we'll see a few examples of bad course outcomes. Okay, we should not do such things. Okay, let us say these 4 course outcomes are there. Okay, offer opportunities for student to master integrated use of information technology. Okay, whether it offers opportunities to students or whether it doesn't offer opportunities to students, it really doesn't matter. Okay, what matters is what will be the capability of the student after completing the course. Similarly, what the program is doing, it really doesn't matter. Okay, what matters is again whether there is an action verb in the learning outcome statement, or whether student will be able to learn and demonstrate in a measurable way. Okay, understanding, I don't think it is really a very qualitative term. How deep is this understanding? You cannot estimate. So in a way, this is not very measurable kind of a statement. And the word exceptionality in a statement does not make it an exceptionally good learning outcome. We should not do this. This kind of thing is not at all a good practice. A good practice, as far as possible, is to include an action verb in the statement of learning outcomes. Okay, for that it's best if you, before you try to write anything, take a look at the chart of the action verbs. Okay, with that we'll go to the next topic, that is looking at examples of good course outcomes. Okay, when you write an outcome, a list of outcomes, you will have a tagline: students will be able to, and then you have a list of action verbs or action phrases. Okay, these will all stand out to be good examples of learning outcomes. Students will be able to organize appropriate experimental data pertaining to stress levels in a component or something. Because this word organize, if you try to see here, closest thing is order. Okay, organizing a set of things in a particular sequence, or ordering them in a particular sequence, more or less they are the same. So that outcome is kind of falling in evaluate domain. Similarly, articulate means specifying clearly and explaining. So this kind of gives understanding. It falls into the domain of understanding. Similarly, if you say evaluate, evaluate again we have seen is falling into the domain of evaluate. So these kind of stand out to be good course learning outcomes. So you'll have a header line, students will be able to, and then several bullets, organize, articulate, evaluate, and so on and so forth. This kind of style gives you a very concise and clear way of writing outcomes. I would encourage you to read this or maybe view these couple of slides in the video once again before you set out to write course learning outcomes. Okay, with that we come to the next topic. What should be the format of the outcomes that we all should follow, that we all decide to follow? Okay, this is one example. Okay, for example, these are the learning outcomes written for engineering mechanics. I am taking a hypothetical case of a hypothetical course, engineering mechanics, and trying to write the course outcomes. Okay, if you see, there is a header line. Okay, you have heading outcomes. After completion of this course, a successful student will be able to, and a colon comes here. I'm specifying this very minutely. Maybe it is kind of silly of me to specify it, but it is best if we uniformly follow one practice. So the header line is, after completion of this course, a successful student will be able to. He'll be able to do any one of these: apply the knowledge, or analyze multi-body systems, or design solutions. Okay, after completion of this course, a successful student will be able to apply the knowledge of mathematics and blah blah blah. After completion of this course, a successful student will be able to analyze multi-body systems under equilibrium, and so on and so forth. After completion of this course, a successful student will be able to design solutions to complex engineering problems, and so on and so forth. We will stick to this kind of format. Okay, when you try to write the course description, syllabus, and everything, it is best if we follow one pattern. Okay, I will kind of try to bring up one pattern here. Let us say this is the engineering mechanics course that we are talking about. You'll have a heading, first BTech, mechanical engineering or civil engineering or whatever engineering comes over here. Okay, or if it is common, underneath it you will write common to so and so. Okay, you will follow this heading format, whatever format we have, and it is best if we include a course code as shown here, course code, and then include this table: internal marks, external marks, total marks, lecture, theory, practical, and credits. Put this nice little table here. Write down the prerequisites. Okay, for this course it is 10 plus 2 mathematics and physics. Generally, prerequisites, when written in a syllabus book, they indicate which other courses in the program should precede this course. So mathematics 1 is a prerequisite to mathematics 2, for example. Okay, something like that. Engineering mechanics is a prerequisite to theory of machines. Prerequisites are courses in the program which should be read before trying to enroll for a given course. They indicate succession of knowledge levels. And then you will write expected outcomes, or you can simply write outcomes also. Okay, you can write outcomes. After completion of this course, a successful student will be able to, and then all these COs will come: CO1, CO2, CO3, CO4. If you carefully notice, at the end of the CO1 statement you have a word PO1 within parenthesis. This indicates that the particular CO, in this case it is CO1. Okay, CO1 is contributing to PO1. CO2 is contributing to PO2, CO3 contributing to PO3, CO4 contributing to PO4. Of course, you need not have this one CO1, PO1, CO2, PO2, CO3, PO3, CO4, PO4, that kind of one-to-one correspondence. Okay, you may have CO2 mapping to PO7, CO3 mapping to PO8, CO4 mapping to PO10, something like that. Okay, as far as possible, let each course outcome map to one program outcome. Okay, it is possible by intelligently rearranging or breaking up sentences, you can have one course outcome map to one program outcome, and try to arrange in such a way that these program outcomes come in increasing order, these course outcomes comes in increasing order. Okay, when you do that, after that you can put in your unit 1, how many periods, unit 2, how many periods, unit 3, how many periods, and then unit 4, unit 5, and as many units as possible, indicate total periods, textbooks and reference books. When you do all this, then your course description is complete. We will try to email a standard pattern with the headings and everything. Okay, religiously please follow that pattern. Okay, we will see what is that in coming days. Okay, so the next tasks that we need to take after this are prepare syllabi with outcomes of each course in the course structure, carefully indicating mapping POs, compile the information about mapping into an Excel file. A sample file is sent to you or will be sent to you. It is something like this here. Okay, let me put grid lines about it. Okay, you have outcomes of each course. I have shown only 2 courses here. You can introduce more courses by introducing or inserting more lines into here. Okay, okay, let me unfill this. Okay, I have indicated engineering mechanics and strength of materials. Okay, engineering mechanics, let us say there are 3 course outcomes or 4 outcomes, list all of them, EM, CO1, EM, CO2, EM, CO3 and so on. Then here you have SOM, CO1, SOM, course outcome 2, SOM, course outcome 3, course outcome 4 and so on. Then next subject, CO1, CO2, CO3, next subject, CO1, CO2, CO3. So this whole column is filled. Then you write PO1 to PO12, okay, across this, okay, along as column headings. For example, CO1 corresponds to PO1 with slight correlation, okay, slightly related, put a 1 there. If CO2 is very strongly related, kind of strong, put a 3. If CO3 is kind of very strongly affecting PO1, put a 3 here. So do that for all the courses. Okay, this kind of information will be useful when we compare our program with somebody else's program. Okay, we'll kind of define guide program, that is how these are appearing, and we kind of prepare global. We take a very standard university and see how these courses to program correlation or mapping is going on. We try to sum up all the values in each column, and these values in some sense specify how well each PO is mapped. When we complete all that, we'll kind of try to draw a graph something like this, and see how a global university's graph appears and how guide graph appears. That will kind of give a nice idea as to how close we are to a global institute. That is our program, how close it is to a global program. Implementation of it is altogether ball game. We are all talking about how clearly we are doing the practice. Okay. With that, we'll come back to the same statement that we need to be careful when we don't know what you're doing. We are not very clear about course outcomes here, and yet we are setting out to write the course outcomes. So we need to be a bit careful. Okay, we need to do a little bit of homework before we jump into this. Okay, if we don't do that, we might not get there. A good thing that we need to remember is do a thing right the very first time you're doing. Okay, take your step very carefully. I hope this little video is helpful to you in writing course outcomes. If you have any questions, comments, or suggestions, you may write to me, or you write an email to me, or SMS me, or call me, or the best, see me in person. You have excellent resources in our college. We have Jagannath Raj Garu, who is a part of NBA previously. We have Gupta Garu. We have Srinidhi Garu, and two other persons who are working a kind of in advance are Sridhar and Jayanand Garu. Let us all get together and let us practice synergy. Thank you very much for listening patiently. Have a great day.